Welcome back. Still on the Ben Breakfast Show. I hope you've been enjoying the show. It's been so heated. We've been having phone calls concerning Donald Trump's decision on 7 Muslim countries, the ban. And we are hearing that Nigeria might be part of it. And loads of our callers, Prince Leye and Dr. Thomas, Dominic, most of them are supporting Donald's view. You know, he mentioned that in his campaign, so he's not really like a surprise for all of us, and he's delivering immediately. So a lot of people are supporting it, and they said they would even like African leaders to start acting that way and put their people first. So we should like buy Nigeria, eat Nigeria, buy Zambia, eat Zambia, do Zambia, and wherever you come from. So yeah, thank you for all the calls that have been coming in now. We have a wonderful guest in the studio, and we know last week we were talking about Brexit. We're talking about how the parliament, you know, won the case at the Supreme Court, and they have a say in, you know, deciding. But I'm sure a lot of people have been thinking Brexit is coming. What's going to happen in April? EU nationals, are we going back home? What's going to happen to the visa situation? And even non-EU nationals too. Everybody's just, you know, fingers crossed, hoping to hear what's going to happen. So we have an immigration consultant in the studio today. His name is Yomi Yusuf. Welcome, Yomi. Thank you for joining us on the Ben Breakfast Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So, Yomi, I'm going to throw this to you. Do you just want to, like, you know, give us a brief introduction to what you think about this whole Brexit?
Well, it's still very, very difficult to speculate what the outcome will be of Brexit. As you know, the United Kingdom decided to hold a referendum last year, around June 26, to withdraw from the EU.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind that they've been within the EU for a period of 4 decades now, it will be very, very difficult to untangle themselves within a short period. I mean, it's still very, very early stages right now to determine what the outcome will be. As you probably know, last week the Supreme Court ordered in favor of Parliament, stating that Parliament had to have a say to determine what will happen. So it's still, you know, it's still very, very early stages right now. We can't speculate what it will be.
What's going to happen?
But what I would advise for people in the UK whose immigration statuses are in various stages of limbo would be to try and regularize their stay, because we don't know what the outcome will be. I mean, a current example is what is going on in the United States right now with the new president being sworn in. We don't know what the outcome would be. So advice would be to try and regularize your stay before. So
when you say they should regularize their stay, how do you mean?
Well, in my experience, there are a lot of people that are here in the UK for various reasons, who have come from different parts of the world for various reasons. Some of them have come on a holiday, some of them have come to study, some of them have come to work, and for one reason or the other, they have been unable to fulfill the terms and conditions of their visas, and they cannot return for one reason or the other. So technically, they can't move forward, they cannot move backwards. As you probably know, if you do not have permission to be in the UK, you cannot work, you cannot open a bank account, and there was even a right to rent law that was introduced last year for landlords, which means that landlords are under an obligation to check the immigration status of their prospective tenants, otherwise they'll get in trouble. So there are a lot of people who do not know that there are various options available to them. So my advice would be to at least come out, you know, open up to us, have a conversation.
All right, I'm going to say that because of the Brexit, you know, there are people now that apply for residence, what you call indefinite stay or leave to remain. Now, some people are issued with a 4-year visa, and I don't know why it's turned out like that now, whether they want to see what you're up to, or and then some are given leave to remain. So now, when, you know, Brexit or Article 50 is triggered, now it's in their hands, it's into the government's hands. Those who are just on a 4-year visa, how do you think they will be affected? Those on indefinite stay as well, what do you have to advise, or, you know, the two?
The thing is, there's so many various applications that you can make to try and regularize your stay. And with the Home Office as well, they say that every application and every case is decided on its own sort of individual merits. So every case will be decided accordingly. So people on the 4-year visa, it appears to me that that would be a discretionary leave application that was made. And a discretionary leave application would probably be someone who has come to the UK and overstayed for one reason or the other, and maybe they had insurmountable obstacles preventing them from going back to their country. So they've put forward an application to the Home Office, and the Home Office has decided to grant them leave to remain on a discretionary leave basis. Generally speaking, if you're granted leave on a discretionary leave basis, it's usually for a period of 6 years. in 2 sets of 3 years. And at the end of 6 years, you can usually apply for permanent residence, and then 12 months after that, you can apply for your British passport. But the good thing also is that once you've started on that route, regardless of whatever happens with Brexit, you will still be able to see to the end. They usually take that into consideration because otherwise it's not fair on you as an applicant who's made an application to try and regularize your stay.
Okay, what about business visas? Because, you know, I think there was it last year, or, you know, there's this entrepreneur?
Yeah, tier one.
Tier one. You would know
the
more
tier
about
one,
all this.
the tier one entrepreneur visa is actually an area of expertise that we focus on in our offices in Marble Arch. The government introduced this tier one entrepreneur visa to try and encourage foreign investors wanting to invest in the UK. And what they're essentially saying is that if you have a capital of £200,000, you can come and invest in the UK. You can either join, set up, or take over an existing business, employ people, so thereby creating jobs. You can either hire one person for a period of 24 months or 2 people for 12 months each, and they want to just see you run the business. Obviously, people whom you employ will be subject to a salary, and the salaries will be subjected to the statutory deductions, which is national insurance and PAYE, and that money goes back to the HMRC, which the HMRC then uses to run the economy. So what they're saying is you can bring the money, come and do the business.
But how long is the duration of the business visa? Is it 3 years, 4 years?
It is 5 years in total, in 3 stages. The first stage is 3 years. You come in, make the application from your country of origin, and once the visa is issued, you then come to the UK, transfer the funds into the UK, and then engage in the business. And then at the end of a 3-year period, they want to see what it is you've done with the money. And then once you've satisfied all the requirements, then you can then apply for the next stage, which is another 2 years. And then at the end of a total of 5 years, you can apply for permanent residence. And at the end of that period, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain.
Yeah, but that 200,000, I think it's not everybody that will be able to afford that.
If it's 200,000 kwacha, where I come from, I can definitely get them loads of people.
Yeah, so what are other options apart from, because this one is really for the big boys or the big, you know, like...
Well, the good thing, in addition to what I've just said, the good thing about the entrepreneur visa is that the rules also make allocation for a team. So rather than one person coming up with the capital, you can have 2 people who can split the capital, risks are shared, you know, ideas are shared.
Can you have up to 10 people?
No, unfortunately. You can also
what's the max?
The maximum is 2 people, a team, and it covers you and your family, so i.e. your wife and kids.
Okay.
And
so you can bring them on the business visa?
Yes, you can. There will be.
So what about kids? Is there a cap? What about if your kids are 35 years old?
Well, if the kids are adults, as you probably know, if someone aged 18 years old in the UK is considered an adult.
Yeah.
But if that person has not formed an independent family unit of their own, and then the Home Office or the Embassy will be willing to consider them if they still form the existing family unit of the main applicant. So if you're coming with your father and you still live at home, because you know in Africa, the children still live with their parents.
Yes, we spoke about that today. Because it was trending on the dailies that they should start taking care of their elderly in this country. You know how they do it. So I'm like, in Nigeria, Africa, we do that every time.
Yes, we do that.
So what other options do we have for long residency and apart from entrepreneurial visa? Because I'm sure there'll be a few people going on that one.
Well, for long residency, there used to be a 14-year rule for overstayers. So those who had come to the UK and overstayed for one reason or the other. In the past, the Home Office was saying that if you've overstayed for a period of 14 years, you can make an application for indefinite leave to remain. But on the 9th of July 2012, that was then increased to 20 years.
Oh my God.
So what they're saying now is that you have to show continuous unlawful residence for a period of 20 years. Now what they're saying is, yes, it's obviously the idea is to deter and discourage people from overstaying. Because the UK, in actual fact, in my experience, is a welcoming country. It's an open country.
It is.
As long as you abide by the rules. They do not mind you coming to work, study, school, do whatever you have to do as long as you comply.
Actually, talking of student visa, just before that, I'd just like to let the viewers know that we're going to open the lines. The lines are open. If you've got any questions to ask Yusuf here on immigration matters, as I'm just going to throw this question now to you on student visa. What's happening now with the student visa? They've changed a lot. I mean, students back in the days when I was JJC, Johnny just come to London, you know, you could work and study. but now they're only allocated a number of maybe 20 hours a week, and you know, most students, of course, have to work, you know, to increase their income.
Yeah.
So what's the changes now with student visa?
Well, the Home Office have introduced changes to make it more difficult for students to circumvent the rules. These are their words. What the Home Office have said is that they are seeing increasing evidence that students who actually come, who intend or who claim to want to come and study aren't actually studying. They are spending more time working rather than studying, and then this is reflected in their academic records. So what they're saying now is, unlike in the past where you could apply for a course and then it could be 2 years or 3 years, and at the end of that period you could also switch into a work permit. Post-study work visa was expunged again July 2012. They're taking out all these rules.
I'm telling you, it's just so hard for students now.
So what they're saying now is, as a student, you have to show that, first of all, you have to show that you have your maintenance before you make your application. And obviously, you'll be making an application to a licensed college. So your school or institution has to be a licensed sponsor, and they have certain types of ratings which will make the Home Office or the embassy issue the visas. And what they're also saying now is that they're limiting the time that you can work on your visas so that you can focus on your studies. They want you to make your studies priority,
as opposed to
the
working. Pounds.
So
what about you know, a student there comes in from any country and they've hit a distinction, they've hit a 2-1 in their degree or masters, and they want to work here. How do they go about that? Well,
unfortunately, it's no longer as straightforward as it used to be. In the past, there was a PSW option, which was a post-study work visa, which was usually granted for 2 years, which enabled students who wanted to acquire experience. You know, it looked nice on your CV if you wanted to go back to your country. That was expunged around 9th of July 2012. So what they're saying now is, well, after you finish your studies, then you have to leave the UK, go back, and then if you want to work in the UK, then you can apply through a licensed sponsor.
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Good morning, Sahid. Thank you for calling the Ben Breakfast Show. Do you want to go ahead with your contribution, please?
Good morning.
Thank you for calling the Ben Breakfast Show.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. I just want to ask some few questions about Tier 2.
Okay.
Which is the work permit route.
Okay.
There are some gray areas concerning that, especially when you work initially on that route, and maybe probably something happens to your employer and you have to change. And it's quite difficult nowadays to get someone to even employ, especially non-EU migrants.
Okay.
And this has been put to the Home Office because I particularly have been to the Home Office before based on that. And I did actually made a complaint that it's quite becoming very tough now to even get somebody to even employ you based that you've got an existing visa, which is probably maybe less than 2 months.
Okay.
Because if you go for interviews, they will probably still question you about that and stuff like that.
Yes.
And the other thing is that if you've got an employer whose license was revoked and you had to go to court based on that, and after a while you won your case, and the court gives you 2 months to look for another employer. There is always a caveat that says you cannot switch into any other group. And
yes, Sahid, you're asking so many questions. Yomi, can you get all the questions?
I think generally speaking...
Yes, sorry, Said. I think 2 questions is enough for him now. Don't bombard him with so many questions. If you need more, you need to pay for that, right?
Or you can contact us at our offices.
Yes,
I think the address is on the screen, is it?
Exactly,
yes. We are based in Marble Arch, Central London. I would advise that you book a private consultation with us to enable us extract
all those questions, but at least you can answer the first 2 questions.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, with the work permit, again, this was introduced to ensure that people who did not require visas were given job offers, or they were offered first refusal. So anybody who's a British citizen or European national or someone with permanent residence are the people who should be given first refusal once applying for a job or going for a job offer. And the reason why the Home Office has introduced all these measures is because a lot of the indigenous people are saying that they are having to compete with other people for jobs in their own country. They felt, well, it was not fair, and obviously the Home Office and the government wants to be seen as a responsive government, which is responsible responsive to the yearnings of the society. So you have to understand that when you're applying for a job, the rules are very, very, very strict. They have made it so difficult for you to switch and like Mr. Sahid said, once your employer is in trouble and they lose their license, then you risk losing the whole visa itself if your employer is unable for one reason or the other to rectify their license. And they could lose their license for so many reasons, ranging from not fulfilling their requirements to the Home Office, or I mean, there's so many factors that the Home Office take into consideration. Yeah. But the best way to do with Mr. Said's question would be to advise him to book a consultation at our offices in Marble Arch, where we can sit down with him, go through the details.
Yeah, I was going to quickly say that the details, of course, are flashing right in front of your screen. Book an appointment. Don't leave it too late. Yeah. You know, there's so many changes happening. But again, people fall in love, and people do really fall in love. Right, so what about the marriage visa for those who are in love?
But not going to United States of America.
There is, I think, the law that you have to go back home, get married, and come back. Now, I'm going to give you a practical example. Somebody wants to get married to a British, either male or female, and that person probably hasn't got a very high-end income, and vice versa with the partner. Now you're telling them to go back home and get married, and then come back. How are they going to firstly afford the plane, the wedding up there? So what other ways? Are there any other ways where people, marriages can get married? So people can get married here and get their visa sorted from here, or is the option only going back home?
Okay, so the marriage visa falls under two categories. If you're in a relationship with a British citizen or somebody who has permanent residence, or if you're in a relationship with an EU national. Now, the financial requirement was only introduced around the 9th of July, 2012. A lot of changes.
2012 wasn't a good year for immigrants.
What's the financial requirement?
A financial requirement is that your sponsor in the UK, if they're working, has to be earning something in the region of £18,600 per annum.
Right, hang on there. So are you telling me I need to go to somebody and say, I'm in love with you, but do you earn 17,000 before the marriage continues? I mean, is that how it works?
Well, not necessarily. Not really. I don't think you are required to do a CRB check on your prospective partner, or credit check on your prospective partner. But I think, again, the reason why this was introduced was because they felt that a lot of people were overly reliant on the social services. Yeah. And what they're saying is, look, if you want to sponsor your partner from outside the UK, then you have to show us evidence of being able to sustain yourself financially, because the general idea or the thinking is that if you're going to sponsor somebody and then you may become reliant on the social services, and, the country is already stretched.
True.
So what they're saying is, well, if you are going to fall in love, well, you have to be able to show that you can afford to fall in love.
To pay in love.
So there are two routes. There's the EU route and the British national route. The British national route, yes, if you're here in the UK in a category that does not allow you to stay here permanently, then you have to obviously seek permission to apply to get married in the UK. Say, for instance, you were on a work permit. A work permit allows you to stay here for a period longer than 6 months. Yes, and then if you met a British citizen or somebody on indefinite leave to remain, you can seek permission to get married in the UK. Once that permission has been granted, then you can apply for permission to remain as a spouse of a British citizen. But one of the requirements that your sponsor would have to fulfill is the financial requirement. And unfortunately, if they fall below that requirement, then you may experience or encounter.
What about if, touch wood, but then people divorce? Do they give a duration, like if you're married, you can't divorce for a certain period of time? If you divorce, then you lose your visa?
Under the EU route, what the Home Office have said is that if you are married to an EU national, first of all, let me just take it from the beginning. If you're married to an EU national, you don't necessarily have to leave the UK. If the registrar or the registry allows you to get married in the UK, then you can make an application for permission to remain.
Even if you don't have right over board?
Yes, even if you don't have permission to remain in the UK. Okay. That's the advantage with the EU route. You do not have to leave the UK.
Okay.
It's at the discretion of the registrar. If the registrar allows you to get married, then you can make an application for leave to remain as the spouse of a European national. You're usually granted a 5-year visa, and at the end of 5 years, if you're still together, then you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, and then 12 months after that, you can apply for a British passport. However, if your marriage breaks down after a period of 3 years, under the EU route, what they're saying is that you can apply for something called a retention of rights, which essentially is saying that you are saying to the Home Office that we're no longer together, but I wish to remain in the UK.
Okay.
But you have to satisfy 3 main factors or more. You have to have been married for a period of 3 years. You have to have lived together in the UK for a period of 12 months. And your sponsor has to have been exercising treaty rights for the entire duration of the marriage up until you get your decree absolute.
So much complication.
Yes, but unfortunately, under the British route, if your marriage breaks down, then unfortunately you may have to find a way to stay in the UK on your own, which is a bit of a dark area, which is not fair on the.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We practically spoke about everything, marriage, student. It's been a good session. I think the people need to pay for the next one. You stop giving out all the information out. Thank you so much, Yomi, for coming. And if you have more questions for Yomi, because we'll be able to take more calls right now, I'm sure you can contact him on the information flashing on your screen. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, the Ben Breakfast Show continues. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Are we off now?
Yeah, we're off now.